check it out. Well, until people come pouring in, I think I will show a little Star Wars. See how much I can get away with. Probably not much. So, because I can't get away with much. Uh, see. Just play the trailer. Maybe that'd be safe.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you. Han Solo, Captain of the Millennium Falcon.
Somebody has to save us.
Fair use.
Let go. The force is strong with this one.
I got him! Great kid! Don't get cocky! I don't know what all this trouble is about, but I'm sure it must be your fault.
Okay. Let's see if I get away with that. We'll see. But let me go ahead and fix my chat moderation here. But for everyone coming into the chat room, may the fourth be with you. Peyton Humphrey says hi. What's up? So yeah, this is a just gonna be a free for all discussion about Star Wars or whatever. You know, I'm here to talk about Star Wars, but I know some of you like to talk about any and everything. But yeah, like I said, it's Star Wars Day, so happy Star Wars Day to everyone. May the fourth be with you. Tomorrow's Revenge of the Fifth. Not an official like Star Wars holiday, but a lot of people like to play around with that Revenge of the Fifth sort of thing. In case you miss today, so you can see I'm wearing my Star Wars T-shirt here from the Gap, and I watched Star Wars earlier. This is why I'm starting now instead of starting earlier. Um, yeah, it's a 2 hour and 5 minute movie. The great thing is next year for the 50th anniversary of the movie, because it came out in May 1977. Um, my birth year, not my birth month, but my birth year. My birth month is September, but I was literally born in the Star Wars uh, era. So before they had the term Zennials for people born between 1977 and 1983, they used to always they used to also call it the Star Wars generation because that was the period in which the original trilogy came out. The only important aspect of Star Wars that I really care about. Um, and although I've watched pretty much everything up until the Acolyte, I couldn't watch the Acolyte and some of the animated stuff that came out in the past 5 years, which is trash. But yeah, yeah. So for the 50th anniversary of the franchise, Disney Lucasfilm is deciding to re-release the original movie. But here's where it's interesting. They're going to re-release the original movie as it originally came out in the theaters. It's not going to be the one that you buy on DVD or Blu-ray or on digital, or that's on Disney Plus, that has all the George Lucas remastering and adding new scenes and stuff like that. This will be the original theatrical release from 50 from 50 years ago. So there will be none of those extra digital effects in it that George Lucas added. There won't be those extra scenes that he filmed in the 90s. Um, there'll be none of the stuff he did in the 2000s. Like he kept tinkering with the original trilogy so many times. Like literally since the 80s, like after they were released in the 80s, he started changing it. For instance, Star Wars, the first movie didn't come out called Star Wars A New Hope. It was just called Star Wars because there was no other movies yet until 1980 when Empire Strikes Back came out. Once Empire Strikes Back came out, then they went back and renamed the movie Star Wars A New Hope. Similar to like Indiana Jones. The first Indiana Jones was originally just called Raiders of the Lost Ark. But after the sequel came out, well, prequel really, which was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which is actually a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark. Then they went ahead and renamed Raiders of the Lost Ark Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. But I remember when it was just called the Raiders of the Lost Ark, not because I saw it in the movies, because that came out in 1981. I was still a baby. But um, because I saw it on VHS, and on the original the VHS I had, it was just called Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I did go to see Temple of Doom in the movies because that came out in 1984. Just like I was able to see Return of the Jedi in the movies. But when Raiders of sorry when Return of the Jedi came out in the movies, I was 5 years old. So yeah, five. um, Carla Marin 9450 says hi. What's up? So anyway, if there's not going to be too many in the chat room, I won't belabor this. I just thought it'd be fun to talk about Star Wars, or we can talk about other things as well. But I am here to talk Star Wars. Matter of fact, I need to pull my boy out. Pause. Not that boy. uh, my little homie right here. So this is a vintage Luke, but his robe and lightsaber and blaster are not vintage. These are uh, what we call repos, uh, repros, short for reproduction. So it's a reproducted um, Jedi uh, robe with a reproduced saber and blaster. And that's only because I wasn't going to pay more to have the original robe, the original saber, and the original blaster, which will cost more than just buying the vintage figure. Because you can buy a beater, what they call a beater figure, which is like a loose figure that's not in pristine condition. If you get like a beater figure from the 80s, it's not going to cost you a lot. but to get it in with all its gear or amenities that came with it, the weapons or whatever, it'll cost a lot. And if you want it mint on card, forget about it. You're talking about like hundreds of dollars, sometimes thousands, depending on the dealer if they think they can get over on you. But yeah. Oh, and the RTD2 is vintage as well. This is the first R2 because there was three R2s. There was this one that didn't have any extra stuff going on with him. Then there was the second one where he had the little gyroscope coming out the top of his head. Then there was the third one that had a lightsaber coming out of him. Now that one I didn't even know about back in the day. I didn't find that one out until like 2 years ago that there was a third one. So there was one R2 for each movie in the toy line. So this was the A New Hope version, even though this is Return of the Jedi Luke, which is my favorite version of Luke because that was my favorite movie. And this is when he finally came into his own as a Jedi Knight. So that's why it's my favorite. Plus, he's wearing black, and it goes back to like the whole cowboy thing from the spaghetti westerns of the '60s. Good guys wear black type thing. It was that and the fact that George Lucas wanted to keep it ambiguous whether Luke had was still good or he had crossed to the dark side by having him wear all black. Anyway, so this is my favorite right here. Put him back. I have other loose figures of him and of that specific version, but have some more coming. Once I have a little bit of a disposable income, I want to buy the Return of the Jedi Luke. This like the more modern version has more points of articulation. I'm not going to get the Black Series version just because I'm not a fan of the six of those 6-inch versions. But there's a slightly larger version of him with more points of articulation that I'm going to get. It's not the Black Series. I think it's either the Vintage Series or the I don't I gotta look. I don't remember, but I like that version, so I wanted to get that. He has an articulated hand and joints at like the elbow and knees, so I want to get that one. Anywho, um, so yeah, part of being a Star Wars fan was definitely like being a collector of vintage Star Wars. But I don't just buy vintage Star Wars, as you can see from the repro stuff that I added to my vintage Luke. The Luke is vintage, but the stuff he's wearing and the weapons aren't vintage. They're repro. I don't have a problem with that. I don't. I'm not that much of a purist. I'm a purist about collecting Star Wars figures, but I'm not that much of a purist that everything has to be in line with as it was originally sold. So, for instance, I have an X-wing, but the X-wing is from the Powers of the Force line that came out in 1995. The but what was cool is that for the Power of the Force line, even though they made all the figures really muscular to kind of compete with like He-Man and some of the other figures coming out at the time, they kept the same molds of the original vintage vehicles and playsets. The funny thing about that is the figures fit poorly into the vehicles because the figures are more muscular than the originals. But for a collector who didn't want to spend, particularly now, who doesn't want to spend money on the original vintage models, they can buy the Power of the Force line vehicles, which are just as good and half the price. So it's good. And I'll show you guys what I'm talking about in a little. I still need to buy like the missiles for it, and I'm not even. The missiles are probably going to be a repro. I don't care. Again, I don't care about repro for the uh, for the accessories. So this is the power of the Force one. So it looks pretty much like the one that came out in the 80s, except they made it battle damaged. They they designed it to look like a battle damaged X-wing. Mm. Yeah, I haven't cleaned this in a while. Mm. But as you can see, it's supposed to be like battle damaged, and it's missing the missiles. So I'm probably gonna get the missiles since I found the cheap repros of the. I found some cheap repros of the missiles because, like I said, for the access, I'm not paying a huge price for the accessories. For the accessories, I have no problem buying the repros, which again just stands for the reproduced uh, items. They're not the originals. They're probably like they're probably like 3D scanned or something. Like they're probably like 3D reprints or something like that. The repros. That's what I'm guessing anyway. Did they probably use like a 3D scanner? So, uh, that's like I said. That's pretty much it. I mean, the Mandalorian and Grogu is coming out in, let's say, the fourth, right? So I want to say less than 3 weeks. In less than 3 weeks, Mandalorian and Grogu come out on May 22nd. I'm not excited about it. I'm not going to see it. And I loved The Mandalorian when it came out, at least the first 2 seasons. I trudged through the third season with my wife, and it was a schlor. Like it was not good. I mean, I knew it was bad when they put fucking um what's that big uh Lizzo, when they did a whole show with Lizzo as a princess and what's his name as her king. It was just the third season was bad. They could have done without it. Plus, the third season was horrible because um it has Din Djarin and Grogu already reunited because they reunited in a completely different series in the Book of Boba Fett, which didn't make sense. Like, why would you have them reunite in an unrelated series? Like, they were doing it so that people will watch Book of Boba Fett, but you undermine Boba Fett, who was supposed to be the star of that series, but he was the most underwhelming character in the show. On top of making Tatooine look like it was like Angel Grove from the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Like originally, the Book of Boba Fett was supposed to be a standalone movie, just like Solo, but Solo flopped, so they lost the guts to make it a solo movie. I mean, to make it a standalone film, just like uh, Kenobi was supposed to be a standalone film, but again, because Solo flopped, they lost the confidence to release Kenobi or Boba Fett as standalone films as they originally planned. But both Kenobi definitely would have benefited from being a movie. It would have got a bigger budget, and it could have cut out a lot of the fluff in the show. Same thing with Book of Boba Fett. It would have been better off as a movie. Plus, it shouldn't have had one. It shouldn't have had Mandalorian in it because he was outshining Boba Fett in his own show. Like the last 3 episodes was pretty much about Mandalorian and Grogu. Like one of the episodes pretty didn't even I don't think even had Boba Fett in it except for like 2 minutes. Then the rest of the show was just Mandalorian 2.1. And like I said, it was bad because it showed Mandalorian, Din Djarin and Grogu getting back together in the Book of Boba Fett. Like if they were going to get back together, that should have been in season 3 of the Mandalorian, not in someone else's series. But even better than that, they shouldn't have done a season 3 before the movie. Like it would have been more after, like by 2022, like the Mandalorian had reached the height of its popularity, and if they had said they were going to make a movie at that time 4 years ago instead of last year, there would have been a lot of hype for it. They could have made that movie and shown Din Djarin and Grogu get back together in the movie. That would have been way more exciting because it would have been unexpected. And then coasting off the excitement of that movie, then they could have made a season 3. Because apparently they're still making a season 4. And if you're gonna make a season 4 to the Mandalorian when you're making a Mandalorian and Grogu movie, it undermines the movie because basically it makes the movie seem like just a glorified episode of the TV show. Like it's like The Simpsons, like having the Simpsons movie where the show was originally going to end. That was supposed to be the ending of the show there, Simpsons movie in 2007. Instead, they decided to keep this franchise going as a TV series, which undermined any import that the film had. So now they're going to make a sequel, a Simpsons movie part 2. I don't think people are going to be pretty well are going to be that hyped to go see it. One, Simpsons has lost its gusto 20 years ago, which was why it was a good place to end it in 2007. Then two, like I said, the show just hasn't been exciting anymore because now Homer went from being like a 3-dimensional character to basically just being a caricature of what he used to be. He's basically just Peter Griffin light. Like he's stupid and obnoxious, which is Peter Griffin. But that was always what Peter Griffin was. Peter Griffin was a knockoff of Homer and Fred Flintstone. Because they're basically all knockoffs of Fred Flintstone, really. Which Fred Flintstone himself is a knockoff of Jackie Gleason from the Honeymooners. If we want to be like really like TV nerds about this sort of stuff. But every cartoon dad has been basically a knockoff of Fred Flintstone, Homer Simpson, Peter Griffin, the dude from American Dad. I forgot his name. Steve. No, not Steve. Steve was his son. Whatever his name is. But anyway, and also Seth MacFarlane was actually going to do a reboot of the Fred Flintstone TV show. So he realized that Peter Griffin was pretty much already what he was doing, like was pretty much already like a reboot of Fred Flintstone. Anywho, again, Simpsons hasn't been good because it's not. So it was cool throughout the 90s because it was basically like Homer centric. It basically revolved around Homer and his family. So then they tried to get away from that in the 2000s and make it more well rounded. Because, well, no. So the original, like the first couple of seasons of The Simpsons were more family centered. Like then it became more Homer centric. But it was cool because Homer, again, as they fleshed him out more, he was a three-dimensional character. So even though it was a Homer-centric show, as it should be anyway, if it was basically like a knockoff, if it was an homage to the Flintstones, which was all about Fred, then it makes sense that it would be a Homer-centric. But after the 2000s, like they were trying to compete with Family Guy, so they kept trying to make him more obnoxious and more stupid to be on par with Peter Griffin. There was even a crossover episode with the Simpsons and Family Guy, where they like both fought and helped each other, and it was like Homer was just as stupid and dumb and annoying as Peter. So at least Family Guy did a remake of the did their own version of the Star Wars trilogy using the Family Guy characters. That was actually, I remember back in the day, that was like my favorite part of Family Guy was when they did the Star Wars trilogy. That was really good. But that was like, yeah, that was about 20 years ago. I I think they did something with the prequels as well. I'm trying to remember. I think they did three prequel versions as well. But I remember when they first did the Family Guy Star Wars. First of all, they actually got the approval of George Lucas to do it. So George Lucas actually approved of them doing a parody of Star Wars. So it was George Lucas approved, and they weren't just episodes of the show. Like if they were originally like DVDs that you had to buy, I think, or buy on digital. So but anyway, my point was that once that the Simpsons returned to TV after the Simpsons movie, it undermined the Simpsons movie because it just made it seem like a glorified episode of the show, which is what Mandalorian and Grogu seems like. So this is why a lot of people don't want to see it, including myself. It just seems like a glorified episode of the Disney Plus series, especially when you hear now there's going to be a Mandalorian season 4. Like if you're gonna make a Mandalorian season 4, what's the point of the movie? The movie should be a standalone thing. The movie should either be a standalone thing or the finale to the show, which originally it seemed like that's what they were going to do because originally they were talking about Mandalorian season 4 a few years ago. Then they decided no, we're going to make the season 4 into a movie. So I thought that's where we were ending the show, but now they're going to make the movie and still do a season 4. So they're trying to stretch out the popularity of Grogu as much as possible. And the problem is a lot of people just don't care anymore about Baby Yoda as much. And because I was a fan, like I'm literally sitting on a blanket right now of a Baby Yoda. I didn't buy it. My cousin bought it for me because she thought I was into it. Which 4 years ago, yes, and like my mother even bought me a little Grogu toy, um, and I ended up buying a, a plush toy for my wife of Grogu, but it was like it can move. So, but this was like 5 years ago. Now I could care less about Grogu. Because for one, I'm just tired of Pedro Pascal. Two, I don't like Lucasfilm anymore for how they've like destroyed George Lucas' legacy. And three, this is just not, the content just isn't good anymore. So Yeah. Make sure I have my cloud bot on so I can catch these trolls. Give me less work to do. Do, 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 do. Hmm. All right. All right, so got my cloud bot moderator back on online, so it can catch these little retards on here. Cause I don't care about you folks. I really don't. I'm not talking about the good viewers. I'm talking about the trolls. I really don't care about you guys. You can't upset me because I don't to be able to for a troll to be able to upset me. I will actually have to respect what they think, and I really don't because I think they're retarded. I think they have mental health problems, and I don't think any of them are strong enough to fight me in real life. So if you can't beat me up and you can't hurt me, I don't. You can't hurt me like financially or socially. I just don't respect you. If you're gonna be disrespectful, eh, most of them are just a bunch of faggots anyway. Because that's the only their go-to insult is saying something gay. So they're projecting the fact they like getting fucked up the ass to other people. Yeah, I said it. You won't hear other streamers say it. I will, because I don't give a fuck. And luckily, YouTube has given us more freedom of expression. So, anywho, um, thinking of doubling down on some more Star Wars content, but instead I'll probably just watch some YouTube and eat dinner, eat a late dinner. Well, late for me. Um, if nothing's popping on here, I mean, I get it. It's Monday night. People probably got other things to do. I don't. I don't have a social life. I'll admit that. Like outside of working out, I don't have a social life, and I do my workouts early in the morning, and then sometimes I go to the gym in the evening or early or in the late afternoon or early, yeah, late afternoon. Not really the evening, towards the late afternoon, because I don't like being out past 8 p.m. I mean, for one, there's really nothing to do past 8 p.m. unless you're going to a bar and stuff. And I'm not a bar hopper. The only other thing I can think of doing past 8 is going to the movies. And again, I can find an earlier showing. And like I said, as far as social life, I don't have one here. I have a social life when I'm overseas. I don't have a social life here because I don't want to spend the money unnecessarily. I'm comfortable staying at home, working out, doing that. Like, there's only one reason to go out late, and that's to get some. You know, that's about it. uh, Besides that, no. So, um, in any case, I'm probably gonna wrap it up here unless people actually want to contribute. Like I said, it's Star Wars Day, so if you want to talk some Star Wars or some other sci-fi or some movies or TV in general, let's have at it. Um, Otherwise, I'm gonna bid you guys adieu. I'll give this a few minutes, see if something pops off. People want to talk some Star Wars or whatever. I even saw William Shatner, the actor who played Captain Kirk on Star Trek, even give a shout out to Star Wars on Star Wars Day, saying from one space legend to another. He said, but yeah, he said we did it first, which no one would deny, not even George Lucas himself. As a matter of fact, he was friendly with Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek. Uh, Gene Roddenberry had even uh, helped financially um, with the making of Star Wars. And on top of that, they've had crossovers in each of their franchises. There, there, there's a movie where, which I believe is in Star Trek First Contact, going, when they're going to war against the Borg, where where the the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars shows up in a very brief Easter egg in the movie to help out the United Federation Starfleet fighting the Borg. And conversely, there's an Easter egg in a Star Wars movie. Uh, I forget which prequel it is. Um, I think it was Revenge of the Sith, where the USS Enterprise from Star Trek shows up when they're in a war to support the good guys. So they've had little brief Easter egg crossovers. See, briefly, a see it or miss it sort of thing, where they've been in each other's respective film universes. So Roddenberry has supported Lucas. Lucas has supported Roddenberry because he recognizes how Star Trek was important to, like, you know was important to making space operas popular. Beyond the stuff that came out back in like the 30s and 40s, like like Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers. And then of course, back in the 70s, they had a lot of imitators like was it Galactica and a black hole and some other stuff, which I watched all of that stuff. I was a huge sci-fi person. I think nerdy people just gravitate to sci-fi for whatever reason. I mean, I know the reasons, the purported reasons anyway. The nerds prefer sci-fi because it's more mm, it's more cerebral, or what do you want to call it? It's more abstract, which attracts nerdy sort of folk. But anyway, guys, looks like not getting too much play on this. So I I'm glad I took the time to enjoy Star Wars instead of hoping on this being a big thing on here, where I would have like a lively discussion. Like maybe if I did it at midnight, but I'm not staying up that late just to talk to a bunch of people. Sorry, not sorry. Like plus it's so many competing streams and content online that it would be hard to find a time anyway. Because I've experimented with every time from 2 p.m. to 1 a.m. and everything in between. So after, with that yawn on that note, I think I'm gonna head out, guys. But I'll give it a few seconds in case someone was furiously typing something on their phone or tablet or whatever. Okay. Um, which I don't think they were. Let me make sure my chat. Well, no, well, my chat filter says all messages, so whatever was coming through is what came through. I didn't. I didn't miss any messages. All right. Well, that's it. I'm out. Peace.